والانسحاب فورا من الصراع الدائر في سوريا.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Internal security forces deny the presence of a bomb near the Saudi embassy after Collège Protestant school received an anonymous warning to evacuate the building. A group of women are jailed for 11 years for a peaceful protest in Egypt's Alexandria as the interim prime minister supports a law restricting public demonstrations. And board members of the International Atomic Energy Agency meet in Geneva for the first time since a landmark deal over Iran's nuclear program was reached last weekend. Police has rushed to Collège Protestant school near the Saudi embassy in Beirut after the school received an anonymous call saying something awful will happen. A security source says the caller demanded the evacuation of the school as well as the surrounding buildings and the nearby Saudi embassy. The caller hung up immediately after the warning around midday. Police rushed to Rue Madame Marie Curie in the Beirut neighborhood of Reitem and searched the school premises and the area around the Saudi embassy, but no explosives were found. An employee at Collège Protestant denied local media reports that children or staff had been evacuated. State prosecutor Samir Hamoud ordered security agencies to track down and arrest the person who made the call. For now, the internal security forces issued a statement confirming that no explosives were found in the vicinity of the school. U.S. Ambassador to Lebanon David Hale insists that his country will continue to confront Iran and its allies, including Hezbollah. Hale's comments come after a meeting with Prime Minister Najib Mikati. He pointed out that the U.S. will continue to cooperate with Lebanon to ensure the enforcement of the international sanctions. Hale told reporters that the main goal behind the deal reached between Iran and world powers on Monday is preventing the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and protecting the West and its allies. He called on the Lebanese foes to abide by the Babda Declaration, the dissociation policy, and the UN Security Council resolutions. Concerning the crisis of Syrian refugees on Lebanese territories, the U.S. diplomat noted that the international support group will continue to address the impact of the Syrian conflict on Lebanon. A large-scale meeting was held at the parliament to brief foreign diplomats and Lebanese politicians on the recently established Israeli spying stations along its borders with Lebanon. The meeting, according to head of the committee, Hezbollah MP Hassan Fadlallah, was held to discuss the dangers of the Israeli spying operations on Lebanon. He pointed out that the attendees didn't discuss the matter as the meeting was only held to brief diplomats on the matter to convey the Israeli violations to the countries. The lawmaker also noted that the Lebanese army will discuss the matter with the UNIFIL, also subjected to Israeli espionage operations. Several media reports say that Lebanon is expected to file a complaint to the UN Security Council over the issue. Finance Minister Mohammad Safadi says customs officials acted inappropriately when they clashed with a crew from Al Jadid TV this week. He says the conduct of the customs personnel was irresponsible despite the journalists' attitude, and added the judiciary is now handling the issue. The minister was referring to Tuesday's scuffle outside the Customs General Directorate in Beirut between customs workers and a TV crew belonging to Al Jadid television. 4 of the station's employees were questioned following the fight and later released. 2 firefighters have been injured as several firefighting engines struggled to control a huge blast that gutted the Forum de Beirut. The national news agency says the fire, which erupted in the early morning rush hour, caused heavy traffic on the Dora Carantina highway where the center lies. The blaze was likely sparked by an electric short circuit where the cables and equipment are stored. It quickly spread to other areas and firefighters failed to contain it. They later contained the blaze in a 100-meter square area after it had spread to the entire surface of the center. They brought it under control a few hours later. Syria's government and the head of the main Western-backed opposition coalition both confirmed they will participate in a UN-sponsored peace conference, but the two sides laid out starkly different visions of what talks would bring. The opposition sees a transitional government emerging, while the government insists it is not going to the conference to hand over power. The United Nations on Monday announced that the long-delayed peace talks will begin on January the 22nd in Geneva. The meeting will be the first face-to-face talks between President Bashar al-Assad's government and its opponents since the Syrian conflict began in March of 2011. 6 people have been killed and 30 others were wounded when a missile hit Raqqa city in the northern Syria as rebels and loyalists clashed on 2 key fronts near Damascus. The frontline battles raged around the Kalamoun area that links Damascus to the central city of Homs. The early morning clashes were especially fierce around Kalamoun's Deir Atiye, which rebels, including jihadist fighters, seized from the army last week. Loyalists, including pro-regime militia, were trying hard to take it back from opposition hands in order to secure the Damascus-Homs road. Raqqa is the only provincial capital in Syria to have fallen out of regime hands since the start of the country's war. It is now under jihadist control, but activists have frequently accused the army of targeting only civilian areas of Raqqa rather than parts of the city where the fierce Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant is positioned. Children in Syria have received polio vaccinations to limit the spread of the infectious disease, as a representative of the World Health Organization confirms that the virus came from outside. The government reported cases of polio last month and said the disease was brought in by foreign militants who illegally entered the country. The WHO representative in Syria confirmed during a press conference that the polio virus likely came from Pakistan. Syria launched a nationwide vaccination campaign on October the 24th. However, it could not reach areas controlled by opposition forces. The Ministry of Health went on to say that Syria will entrust relevant international organizations for the vaccination work in opposition-controlled areas. The health minister says the vaccination work in the country has achieved initial results, adding that some international organizations have pledged more help for the next phase of the vaccinations. Still to come in our program, Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra calls for an end to opposition protests. Stay tuned. Welcome back. A group of women are sentenced to 11 years in prison for a peaceful protest in Alexandria as Egypt's interim prime minister gives a strong defense of a law further restricting public demonstrations. The women, supporters of the deposed President Mohamed Morsi, are being jailed for forming a human chain and passing out flyers earlier this month. 7 minors among the group were remanded to juvenile detention until they reached the legal age, the youngest in the group being 15 years old. 6 men, described by prosecutors as Muslim Brotherhood leaders, were sentenced to 15-year terms, accused of being members of a terrorist organization. In a news conference, the interim Prime Minister Hazem al-Biblawi defended a new law which requires citizens to apply for permission before marching. The cabinet confirms that it will apply the law fully to show its support for the police in the face of terrorism. The International Atomic Energy Agency, UN, says Iran has invited it to visit the heavy water production plant at its Iraq site on December the 8th for the first time since August 2011. The heavy water reactor Iran is building at Iraq is of concern to the international community because Tehran could, in theory, extract weapons-grade plutonium from the reactor's spent fuel. The UN Atomic Watchdog Board has met in Geneva for the first time since the landmark deal over Iran's nuclear program was reached last weekend. But the agreement sealed in Geneva on Sunday boosts the scope and significance of the agency's monitoring activities, making it the chief arbiter of whether Iran is keeping its end of the bargain, capping its nuclear program in exchange for some sanctions relief. Thailand's Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra survives a no-confidence vote in Parliament, where her party holds a commanding majority, but faces mounting pressure from widening anti-government protests. Hours later, she appealed to protesters to end their sit-ins at ministry buildings across the capital of Bangkok. Demonstrators responded to her call by cutting the power to the country's national police headquarters, showing that the vote is unlikely to end the biggest anti-government protests since deadly political unrest 3 years ago. Police officers have so far been restrained in dealing with the thousands of protesters, and the military has not been deployed in the bid to avoid the bloodshed that marked protests in 2010. And now for news around the world in brief. Dubai has won the race to host the 2020 World Expo. The success of Dubai's bid, which beat stiff competition on Wednesday from Yekaterinburg in Russia, Brazil, São Paulo, and Izmir in Turkey, marks an impressive economic recovery since the country's near financial collapse between 2008 and 2010. Dubai, one of the 7 emirates that make up the UAE, becomes the first Middle Eastern city to host the event in its 150-year history. The Italian Senate has voted in favor of stripping former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi of his seat in Parliament after the highest court made definitive a tax fraud conviction against him in August. The conviction was Berlusconi's first definitive sentence in 2 decades of legal battles. He is too old to go to jail under the Italian law and has requested to serve the year by doing social service rather than under house arrest. Police in Arizona say they are reading through the journal of a 17-year-old girl to investigate claims 3 girls had been held captive by their mother and stepfather for up to 2 years. Tucson police say the 2 youngest girls escaped through a bedroom window in their home and alerted a neighbor early on Tuesday. Police later discovered the 17-year-old was in a nearby room. And now for some Thanksgiving news. U.S. President Barack Obama spares 2 turkeys from the oven, fulfilling the annual tradition of a presidential pardon for a couple of lucky birds ahead of the American harvest holiday of Thanksgiving. Obama pardoned Popcorn, who shared the stage with the president at the White House on a cold, drizzly day. An alternate turkey named Caramel also received a pardon, though it did not have the benefit of a face-to-beak, meeting with the president. Obama says presidents have many awesome and solemn responsibilities. However, he said this is not one of them. Popcorn and Caramel weigh 17 kilograms each. Turkeys are the mainstay of many American meals on this national holiday.
Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving. The office of the presidency, the most powerful position in the world, brings with it many awesome and solemn responsibilities. This is not one of them. But the White House turkey pardon is a great tradition, and I know Malia loves it, as does Sasha. Generally speaking, Thanksgiving is a bad day to be a turkey. 80 turkeys on John's farm competed for the chance to make it to the White House and stay off the Thanksgiving table. It was quite literally the Hunger Games. And then after weeks of vocal practice and prepping for the cameras, the 2 tributes, Caramel and Popcorn, went head-to-head together for America's vote as top gobbler. The competition was stiff, but we can officially declare that Popcorn is the winner, proving that even a turkey with a funny name can find a place in politics. I want to grant Popcorn a full reprieve. Come on. I want Popcorn, you have a full reprieve from cranberry sauce and stuffing. We wish you well, and we're going to give Caramel a break as well. All right?
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Internal security forces deny the presence of a bomb near the Saudi embassy after Collège Protestant school received an anonymous warning to evacuate the building. A group of women are jailed for 11 years for a peaceful protest in Egypt's Alexandria as the interim prime minister supports a law restricting public demonstrations. Finally, board members of the International Atomic Energy Agency meets in Geneva for the first time since a landmark deal over Iran's nuclear program was reached last weekend. Those are your Thanksgiving headlines from the English News team here at Future Television. To all of you celebrating, have a great one.
الانسحاب فورا من الصراع الدائر في سوريا